Step right up here for the greatest show on earth, the Washed Up Loser Olympics 2024. CrossFit needed a new logo after losing its title sponsor, so it did what it does best and bastardized someone else's. The games coincided with the real Olympics, so CrossFit used that for inspiration too. One opened with a tribute to Dionysus, while the other opened with a sacrifice to Poseidon, giving you the full story of the swimming event that had more than just the competitors sick to their stomachs. I'm Asian reporter and returning champion, Elgintensity. And they're off to find a body. This is going to be a very different games roast for a very different games weekend. There were no max out lifts, and nobody dropped anything on themselves or fell a great distance. Through the air anyway. Some bad calls wound up being reversed and or not making much of a difference. Even if the games produced a lot of fails this year, they'd pale in comparison to the death of 28-year-old Lazar Jukic on August 8 at the Marine Creek Lake in Fort Worth, Texas. After the lake took down the CrossFitter, CrossFit took down the stream, but I found some clips. Lazar's swan song occurred during Lake Day, the first event of the games. A 3.5-mile run followed by a half-mile swim. In a triathlon, it's always the other way around, due to the greater consequences of being tired in the water versus on land. Swimming after a run could lead to aquatic ruin, and with the lack of safety precautions at the lake, if it's your time to go, then you gotta go fast. As you can clearly see from the pixels at the top of the screen, Lazar was in distress for a long time, but the camera and commentators focused on Tia Claire Toomey, who made her games comeback after giving birth. Nobody moved in except for a spectator, whom security turned away. After all, he might have gotten dragged down too, without proper life-saving skills. And if anyone is going to keep you down for the rest of your life due to poor training, it'll be CrossFit. Fort Worth police arrived at the scene to give their report and field questions. CrossFit has trained many law enforcement officers over the years, but the cops are only there because the same can't be said about lifeguards.
Hello, I'm Don Fall, CEO of CrossFit.
It's not drowning, you can get closer. There you go.
Don Fall, CEO of CrossFit, DONFAUL.
Dave Castro, Director of the CrossFit Games, CASTRO.
The reporters didn't grill Castro at all, even though he just told them that he's in charge of the competition. The city is searching for a drowning victim on his turf, which brings new meaning to fishing for men in the Castro.
And I have a brief statement to share with you this morning. CrossFit is deeply saddened by the death of one of our athletes during the swim portion of our event this morning. We're doing everything in our power during this tragic time to support the family, to support our community.
Speaking of family, Lazar's brother Luca was competing at the games as well. Luckily, the hazardous conditions there didn't cause both of the swimming Dukiches to take the plunge like the flying Graysons.
We are collaborating, working very closely with the authorities on the follow-on investigation.
Or you could listen to the coaches and competitors. Last year's champion was so disoriented and fatigued from the heat that, according to his coach, he swam about 400 meters off course. He also sat in the water for over 6 minutes and received no help except for a bump from a paddleboarder during one of his detours. The paddleboarders were pretty much useless at keeping the swimmers safe, which is an important job because the more you turn from the pack, the more likely you'll turn into one.
We've canceled the rest of today's events and activities in the CrossFit Games, and we'll continue to be focused on supporting our community and the family through this tragic set of circumstances.
What a company. A Marine and a SEAL can fumble more than the Secret Service and keep their jobs. For now.
You said you intend to cancel today's events. Have you made any decisions about the rest of the CrossFit Games?
We have not yet. We're going to be regrouping later today.
I left the meetings immediately. We said, hey, let's move down this path of starting the games tomorrow, kicking back off and celebrating him and honoring him through the community and bringing the community together, bringing the athletes together, and really putting on a celebration of life through competition, through who we are. That was where our head was, and that's where we thought we could take this. So then went and saw Luca, had a conversation with him, and he gave his blessing. He said he supported the idea of the event continuing forward.
Luca showed a lot of restraint by not meeting him on a boat and sending Dave Castro to Davy Jones' locker. I doubt that he was thinking clearly during a conversation with the guy whose negligence likely caused his brother's demise. He probably just didn't care because he was traumatized, or he didn't want to punish the rest of the competitors by refusing to let the show go on. Luca then withdrew from competition. continuing the tradition of Serbians who'd rather go home than show up to the games.
Some people felt very strongly we should not continue. Some people felt strongly we should continue. And so it was going back and forth, heated but very positive discussion, broke into 4 groups. I sent the individual men to one corner, the individual women to another corner, coaches to one corner and teams to another corner. And as small groups, they all discussed ideas and concepts, and they talked about places or things we can do, directions we could take this. Then from there, we brought them together, saw there was a lot of differing opinions and some very vocal voices that were drowning everyone out.
Don't do that, Dave. I roast CrossFitters, you boil them. You also put them in hot seats, even though nobody should have to make important decisions while still in shock. Continue the games without a full safety assessment, and you can potentially secure the bag at the risk of being in the next memorial photo on the Lives Here marquee. Cancel the games and you have time to mourn, but your training was for nothing, on top of the inherent uselessness of being a CrossFitter. Someone with at least a Marine Creek Lake Temp IQ needed to make the decision and take the backlash, because nothing would have pleased everybody. For CrossFit, the choice between money and decency was very easy, as canceling the remaining events would have opened the company up to attack from spectators who didn't get what they paid for, and vendors who missed out on sales. For example, I can't release a Major Lift Blunders shirt this year, because it'll look blank.
I wonder too, you saw videos of what happened. Can you kind of describe what the paddleboard kayakers and safety staff are supposed to do, what the protocols are when you see someone struggling in the water?
So we have for an event like this, a fully planned and documented safety plan. As you know, we had safety personnel on site throughout the event. All of the details around the process, the event, what unfolded today, that'll be a part of the details that we work through very closely with authorities. That'll be part of the information that's to come as part of the investigation.
But there is a safety protocol for...
Correct.
By most accounts, there were only 3 paddleboarders monitoring 79 participants. You could argue that's insufficient coverage of the lake. It's very possible that a paddleboarder would overlook a drifter in his vision like an eye floater. Worse yet, Lazar took his swimming cap off, which was clearly a distress signal, but dark trunks and swimsuits are hard to spot in the water. This event, which ended in disaster in part due to poor visibility, was sponsored by an eyewear company. Talk about bad optics. A Games spectator and former lifeguard trained in deep open water rescue knew that Jukic was drowning about 50 meters from the finish line. Security did nothing, and not just because there's nothing for them to do when they're surrounded by perpetually injured anemia patients. In addition to the paddleboards, which would have only been suitable to grab onto, there were only 2 jet skis to monitor an 800-meter course on open water. They might have been able to reach him in 10 to 20 seconds, but took far longer than that, which makes this rescue attempt the new slowest CrossFitter deadlift. Apparently nobody on the lake had flotation devices, radios, or whistles. They had no means to rescue anyone. They were most likely volunteers with no lifeguard training. Standing casually near a Serbian without specialized equipment made the so-called lifeguards look more like Turkish sharpshooters.
So I talked to some of the athletes off camera. It sounds like CrossFit is a very tight community. Kind of describe that community and your emotions now and how you are.
Yeah, CrossFit is, as you know, is in some ways like a family. People care a lot about each other. There's a lot of people in the community that are hurting right now, that are really sad, that knew the athlete well, that loved and respected this person, and a lot of people are mourning. We want to do everything we can to support the community, to support the family, friends through this really challenging time.
Lazar's tribute was only 1 minute out of the 20-minute, 35-second video. CrossFit might not provide swim buoys, but it'll inflate the hell out of its watch time. The tribute was a generic speech with fewer words than CrossFit's official statement. I've heard of meetings that could have been emails, but this one could have been an Instagram caption. Some of Lazar's social media posts appeared on the Jumbotrons, while the camera crew zoomed in on everybody who was crying, even though their waterworks were caused by these bubbleheads who don't know how bodies of water work.
Hearing the athlete is from Serbia, can you confirm that?
Not this time.
Can't confirm any details about the athlete.
CrossFit offed one of its own before me. I wouldn't want to talk about it either.
There was a lot of chatter when this moved from Wisconsin to here about the heat. And I just wonder, is it as hot as you expected? Do you feel like you adequately prepared for the temperature differences, Fort Worth versus
We every time we plan for a new venue, we go through extensive planning. We were fully, versed in preparing for it, very confident in the event that we could plan and prepare. Precautions as relates to the heat around time of day that we went through, yes.
And you still threw everyone into open water in Texas in the summer when even the real athletes aren't outside. That's not putting them through the ringer, that's putting them in a lobster pot. These were the temperatures during the games. Even in the morning, it's hot and humid. The water temperature at Marine Creek Lake was about 87 degrees, or 2 degrees above what's considered safe for these types of events. One of the female swimmers said that the water was turbid and that she felt like her body was boiling from inside during the last 100 meters. It must have been like swimming in chowder, except the soup's running through your body until you die like A-Train. In December 2023, the Professional Fitness Athletes Association, which is like an exercisers union, emailed CrossFit about the number of events to be held outdoors, their duration, and the time of day they'd be performed because they were concerned about the risk of being unprepared for the heat. CrossFit's response was that it wasn't releasing event details at that time. They care so much more about secrecy than safety that they'd rather put you in a bag than let the seafood boil out of the bag.
How do you feel right now?
Gutted. Really sad.
Gutted, like the only thing that should ever die at a lake, and sad, like his media training. While Fall withstood a deluge of questions, Castro did his best impression of an Event 1 paddleboarder by doing absolutely nothing for several minutes to help the guy in front of him keep his head above water.
One more question? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. As stated, if you have anything to follow up with, please just send them directly to policemedia@texas.gov. We will direct them to the appropriate location.
If CrossFit's independent investigation confirms our suspicions, then I'm sure its insurance premiums will skyrocket, and it will settle with Lazar's family to avoid a massive lawsuit. The court battle will be a spectacle to behold, but it's probably best for the Jukic family to be compensated handsomely and quickly. If I wanted to see a hothead named Dave execute a plan for the water that'll backfire on him, I'd watch Carlito's Way. Everybody responds differently to the news of someone's death. Some prefer prayer and paying tribute. Others prefer dark humor. If you don't like it, then you can jump in a lake. Just not at a CrossFit-sanctioned event, because that's not allowed right now. I've been pointing out the safety issues at the Games for a decade. Many of you have been there from the beginning. CrossFit is now the other organization that placed a man in the middle of a table with a halo and a blue body. I used to have a mini-series called Smaller by the Day, my CrossFit show, motherfucker. Now I'm reporting on CrossFit sending its own members to meet St. Piana. Add this tragedy to the list of reasons why competitive exercising will never be a sport. It'll mainly be known for the fails, no matter how much its governing body tries to scrub the internet of the dysfunctional movements that it showcases, like Olympic breaking. It will also never be considered a company that cares about its community. If CrossFit is a family, then it has the type of parents who would leave an infant unattended in a bathtub.
0!